That's an interesting story too. Through all of this, one thing that it did do was it made me very resilient and pig-headed, really. I had the typical teenage stubbornness, that girls get, that sassiness, but mine was a little elevated from that. And it served me well multiple times. And one time was my father had been working out of state. He was coming home. And when he came home, he tended to go into these rages on and off. So we felt like we walked on eggshells all of the time.
Yeah.
And one particular night, he was arguing with my mom. It was late. I was sitting across from them in the living room, thinking to myself, I'm not trusting him at all.
Mm.
And this needs to end. And millions of things are going through my mind, but one decision that I consciously made was if he ever lays a hand on her, I'm gone. Well, it wasn't 20 minutes later than that. He did. He grabbed the back of her hair. And I don't remember going through my screen door in Missouri. This was in the middle of winter. There was snow on the ground. And I ran to my neighbor's house, pounding on the door and said, "You got to let me in." They were good friends of mine. I had babysat their kids for years. And I said, "I need to call my brother in California." And I called him and I said, "I need out of here." And he goes, "Well, is mom coming with you?" And I said, "I don't know." So she eventually did come looking for me and is like, "You need to come home." I said, "No, I'm not going home. And you have a choice. You can either come with me, or if you stay, you're probably going to end up dead." And she thankfully chose to come with me. And my father left for work about 3 hours away the next morning. And I think we had 4 days before Christmas. Well, my brother flew in that Monday. We packed up all of our belongings and we were on the road within 36 hours in a
Wow.
moving van.
Wow.
Luckily, because we found out later he had come home, in about 48 hours. So that was a very hard transition for me. I was just in the beginning of my high school years, moved out to California, still very headstrong. I'm going to make this work. But what was interesting about that time is I was still performing. So I had my ideas of what California should be, how we should act. And I was always interested in tennis. And I looked at people who played tennis as successful. So I immediately put myself in city run tennis lessons and joined the tennis team as soon as school started.
Wow.
And because I thought that was what successful kids in California did.
Right.
And I don't know that it made me any more successful, but what it did do was it anchored a group of friends, girlfriends that I'm still friends with today.
Oh,
So,
wow. Wow. So it was meant to be. That is so
yes,
lovely. Absolutely. And it's interesting as well as you've sort of been talking, there's real pivotal moments through that sort of time frame that you've just mentioned where there has already been that sort of rebuilding that is
yes,
going on inherently, and you're not necessarily immediately aware of it. You're a
no,
teenager and you're just trying to do what you can. Now, when we look back, and often this happens, it's happened to me. I had pivotal moments for sure through my childhood where I went, oh my goodness, if I hadn't done that, I would definitely not be where I am today. And I think that is quite important when we're on this journey of rebuilding ourselves.
yes,
We recognize the important lesson, the learning that has been already taken place that we're already using, isn't it?
it
So